Classic WoW had a long period of patches and content added to the game before the Burning Crusade. The final major content patch in Classic WoW is Naxxramas. But what happens after that? Blizzard has said that after Phase 6 and Naxxramas is out, they don't really know what they are going to do next. We could see Classic WoW go down a new route and have its own set of content in the Classic WoW timeline. Most people think that we will see a re-release of the Burning Crusade expansion, essentially having 3 versions of World of Warcraft, but what is more interesting is the possibility of new content, an entire new expansion coming exclusively for Classic WoW. In this video I will discuss some of the so-called Vanilla Plus content. This would of course mean new dungeons, raids, battlegrounds and more. It turns out there's actually quite a lot of unreleased content that never made it to Classic WoW back in the day. Blizzard initially had much higher ambitions for what they wanted to release in Classic, planning way too much stuff that could never be developed on time and ultimately got scrapped before the Burning Crusade. Of course, some of this content that they were working on to be released in the vanilla version of the game actually got converted into Burning Crusade content. However, some of the content that was being developed actually got stuck in developmental limbo and never saw an official release even in today's modern WoW. So what are some of these unreleased zones? Azshara Crater is an example of a battleground that never actually got released but was still left in the game files. You guys may have heard or seen pictures of this place. This is what would have been part of the battleground selection in Classic WoW and was themed around the Azshara zone, which may explain why Azshara felt so empty in Classic WoW. There was supposed to be an Alliance and Horde hub here, but it never was finished in time, so they later scrapped it. Which is kind of a shame, to be honest. Azshara Crater actually looks really awesome. The most iconic feature of this unreleased battleground are the 2 giant dragon statues overlooking the area. I think Blizzard were inspired by the success of the Dota mod in Warcraft 3 that they decided to take elements from this and create a battleground around it. You may find it hard to believe that there will actually be a MOBA style game in Classic WoW, however if you look closely at the map, this is actually what this battleground is based on. The Azshara Crater really does resemble the map in Dota. There are Horde and Alliance bases with defense towers, lanes for NPCs, and even what looks to be neutral furball camps that junglers would go to. It's hard to say if this MOBA style battleground would have worked in World of Warcraft, but looking at footage of what would be the Azshara Crater battleground definitely makes you wonder what it would actually be like. The only thing that makes me wonder is the size of this battleground. I mean, this place is absolutely giant. The distances you have to travel to go from one part of the map to the other is extremely vast, so this really might not work that well. That might be the reason why they scrapped it. Another example of content that was teased to be released in Classic WoW was Oldham. So in case you guys don't know, Tanaris actually had the gates to Oldham even back in Classic. Of course, Oldham was released in Cataclysm and was basically the ancient Egyptian themed zone, with pyramids, sphinxes and so on. But I don't think this was Blizzard's initial plan for Oldham in Classic WoW. From the little that we can see of Oldham in Classic WoW, it looked like Blizzard had a much different idea of what this place would actually be like. The gates of Oldham are surrounded by high-level elite rock giants, which makes me believe that this would actually be an Earth Elemental themed raid, similar to Molten Core, but instead of fire, it's rock. What makes me think that this would actually be a raid or a dungeon is the fact that there's so many elite mobs outside, which is characteristic of a dungeon or a raid in Classic. You know that you're going into a dungeon or a raid when you see a bunch of elite mobs outside, so I'm 90% sure that Blizzard was actually intending for Oldham to be a standalone instance, not really a zone. This wasn't the first time the entrance to a raid was teased. Long before Zul'Gurub ever came out, you could still see the elite mobs hanging outside the entrance to ZG. Eventually Zul'Gurub came out as a raid, and I remember coming to the entrance of Zul'Gurub as a kid and was pretty fascinated and excited to see what this instance will be. And I felt the same being outside the entrance to Oldham. I was so sure that this would be the next raid in Classic WoW, however it wasn't the case, and we never actually saw anything from it until Cataclysm came out. To this day we don't exactly know what was initially planned for Oldham. It was turned into the Egypt zone in Cata, but I'm guessing that Blizzard had a very different idea of what they wanted to do with this place. If we're talking about unreleased raids in Classic WoW, we have to mention the Karazhan Crypts. So Karazhan is actually in Classic WoW, it's just that the gate to that raid is locked off and there's no way to get inside the actual place. Of course, this later got released in the Burning Crusade and became the starting raid for that expansion. However, Blizzard actually planned for Karazhan to be released in Classic WoW, but they never had enough time to finish it, so the Deadwind Pass as an area just feels really empty. However, if you explore further in the Deadwind Pass, you can actually find a very secret zone that is a little north of the Karazhan Tower, where you can descend into a crypt with a locked gate. So as you can imagine, you can't actually get past the locked gate, despite that there's obviously stuff beyond the gate. Many WoW players back in the day came up with all kinds of ideas of how to get past and explore what is in the Karazhan Crypt. But to get in is actually pretty easy and doesn't really require a glitch. If you die as a ghost, you can actually go past the gates and resurrect on the other side, leaving you completely free to explore the Karazhan Crypt, one of the most secret zones in World of Warcraft history. So as you can see, the Karazhan Crypt is an absolutely massive place in the game, which makes me believe that this would have actually been a 40-man raid, judging by how big the rooms and corridors are. The size of this place is so huge that there is no way that this would just be a 5-man dungeon. Just look at the size of this room and you can easily imagine a raid boss inside here. Clearly Blizzard has some big plans as to what the Karazhan Crypt would actually be. However, I think one of the main reasons why this place never got finished is because visually it's not very interesting. As cool and as interesting as this place may be to explore now, I think if they actually launched this place as a standalone raid, people might be quite disappointed. Although this place is very creepy to go inside, there's really not much to it. It's just a big spooky crypt. However, it gets pretty dark. One part of the zone has an underwater section where bodies are on these long metal chains. For World of Warcraft, this place is pretty dark and looks more like a place that you would find in Resident Evil. It's honestly quite creepy to come down here by yourself, and it really does stand out from all the other zones that you can find in WoW. I don't think there's any other place that is quite like this, but it's definitely interesting to come down here and see what could have been. Another major piece of content that never came out was Hyjal. This of course is a major lore location in Warcraft history and can quite easily be accessed in Classic WoW by doing some wall jumping in Winterspring. The crazy thing about this place is how well developed it is. I mean, this place is pretty much finished, even before it came out as a raid in the Burning Crusade. Of course, you're not supposed to go in here, and there's no NPCs or any monsters in here. However, the sheer scale of this zone and the detail of it is pretty amazing to see. I remember coming here as a kid and being absolutely amazed by seeing the skeleton of Archimonde. You can even find a raid portal inside here, similar in design to the gate to the Onyxia raid. So it's a pretty good guess that Blizzard was planning for Hyjal to actually be a zone and not necessarily a raid or a dungeon. I'm guessing that this place would have been a level 60 exclusive zone, similar to Silithus. This would be one of the zones that you would end up at when you're at the max level. But the fact that there's a raid portal that looks to be a dragon fight is pretty interesting. If Classic WoW ever recreates content, there's a pretty good chance that we would see a recreation of Hyjal, and that this place would finally be accessible in Classic WoW. One of the most mysterious zones that you can find in Classic WoW's game files is the Dragon Isles. This was a zone that was left in the Classic WoW game files that is completely untextured. From what people have gathered is that this was in the Programmer's Isle and was some kind of Naga themed temple that was built on the shell of a giant sea creature, which is absolutely massive. So it would have either been the home of a playable Naga race, which Blizzard were actually planning for Naga to be a playable race in Classic WoW, so it might not be out of the question that this would have been their capital city. Or this could have been a separate raid where we take on some Naga bosses. It's amazing to see how such an ambitious project like this was just abandoned in the World of Warcraft game files. If Blizzard ever wanted to create further content for Classic WoW, they might want to revisit this project after Naxxramas. Even today in BFA, we haven't actually seen what this place actually is. We haven't actually seen this place get released. Looking at the footage here, it's absolutely trippy to see such a massive place with no textures. Yet this was in the World of Warcraft game files for a very long time, so what Blizzard was actually planning for this place is still a mystery. To be honest, I'm not sure if we will get further content in Classic. I think the most likely scenario is that we will get TBC servers or nothing at all. You see, the TBC servers are a proven concept, and it really doesn't cost that much for Blizzard to develop since the content has already been created. So I think it's a pretty good chance that we will get TBC servers. However, I could be wrong and we could actually get new content for Classic. If Blizzard goes down the route of old school RuneScape and creates further content and expansions for the classic version of WoW, it will either be absolutely amazing or it could ruin the game. So it's quite a big risk for Blizzard to change it up. I'm really curious to see what you guys think about this. Do you think Blizzard should add further content for Classic WoW like old school RuneScape? Or do you think Classic WoW should be left completely alone? Leave your thoughts down in the comments below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel. This is vaulty, signing out.